Hi guys, welcome back to another video. It's the boy 10. Today we are watching When Ageism Catches Up to You. Video by I Used to Be Paid. I knew this guy when he was still paid. Terrible joke. Alright, let's get into it.
What's good, YouTube? It's Justice. I used to be paying. Today I'm back with another video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Lil Uzi's ageism catching up to him. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. It helps me out a ton. Gen Z is a very ageist generation. We hate all things that are old. In Gen Z, if you are over the age of 20, you're ancient, bro. Like, you might as well just get ready to go ahead and get in that box and go 6 feet under, because your life is over once you hit 20. Like, you ever see those videos of those like kids or those basketball players in college when they're like, how old do you need to be considered to be old nowadays? And they're like, ah, man, 24. You know, what year do you need to be born in to be considered old? And they're like, 2003. And it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, on TikTok,
Not this exaggeration, but yeah, I do understand what he's trying to say. Right now, these days, if you even smell 28, people are starting to look at you weird. Like, you're 28? Damn. And I'm like, what? 28? Bruh.
you would think I'm the oldest man on the planet. I'm not going to tell you my exact age, but I'm in between the years of 20 and 26. And they always tell me to go start a family. You're unk now. Let it go, bro. You're not a kid anymore. Why are you making TikTok? Like, you would think I'm the oldest person to ever step foot on Earth. And even though Uzi he is a younger millennial,
I can't wait for the same people who call people old now to reach the exact same ages that they called people old for, and watch how karma repeats itself so that the next generation look at them and say old, and then they get to start defending themselves like, I'm not old, and I'll be like, bitch, that's what you said too when you were this age.
acted just like this when he was on his come up. He would constantly talk about his age. He would talk about the difference between himself and the older generation of rappers, or the older generation.
Cats to see what
Yeah,
y'all really built.
hey,
though.
you heard me?
I'm too
young.
Friends
Your
off-
fans gonna be disappointed. All the old
They don't
guys.
give a
Of hip hop. He would talk about how him and his generation are doing things differently, and he heavily valued that youth. And he would say to all the older people, if you're not going to get with the program, then you just need to go ahead and get out the way. Yet now, Uzi is of the age of the people that he used to call old. And I think that he's actually in a very interesting part of his career now. Lil Uzi is a founding member of this generation of rap. A lot of the trends, fashion, and music really got its start with Uzi and his come up. It still feels a bit weird to say since this is like my high school era of music, but Uzi is an OG at this point.
Yeah, basically what I was trying to say. Sorry, they've taken like I'm Nigerian, so it's a normal occurrence over here, so just in case you were wondering what's going on, the lights went off.
Been around for like over a decade now as a major player in the rap scene. This gimmicky rapper from Philadelphia with purple dreads and
Now I feel old because I know when he dropped EXO Tour Live. That was his first breakout, right? I still remember very clearly when he dropped EXO Tour. That's insane. That's insane that he's already touching 30s now.
strange outfits and even stranger music actually lasted 10 years instead of falling off like a lot of the media members said he would when he was on his rise. He's now 31 years old and now at a point in his career where he is an elder statesman. And while I wouldn't say his career is in a complete state of flux, there definitely isn't a laid out path for him at the moment. And the future, the near future especially, is up in question. Uzi has always seen himself as the young guy coming in with all the sauce, throwing a wrench into the game. You know, innovating sounds and styles, almost starting a revolution in hip hop. And he was right to believe those things about himself. But now he's the older, established guy who isn't really trailblazing or breaking any new ground anymore. In fact, his style that was seen as so chaotic and so new and so out there has been adapted by so many people that came behind him. He's not even really seen as super different anymore. He doesn't stick out like a sore thumb like he used to in the past. There was a time when Uzi was so new and everything that he was doing was so different that everything he did was either copied or it was heavily debated upon as the worst thing to ever happen in the history of hip hop, or something really cool and something that's going to break open doors for the next generation. Now, I'm not saying that Uzi can no longer innovate in rap after turning 30 or being over the age of 30, but it just doesn't come as easy for him as it once did. It's not as natural as when you're the new guy who's coming in and setting the entire world on fire. I think we're seeing this reflected in Uzi's music. Lil Uzi's music isn't as dominant as it was 5 to 7 years ago now. In fact, his last two albums weren't really super well received unanimously. Now, I will die on the hill that Pink Tape is a good album. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what anyone has to say. You can't tell me anything about that project. I think it's really good. I enjoy the experimental stuff. I enjoy some of the weird, quirky stuff on there. I think it's a ton of fun. But there's no denying that that isn't the total overall kind of summary opinion when it comes to the Pink Tape. Most people in rap really didn't care for it that much. Even some of Uzi's diehard fans didn't really care for that album that much. Now, when we get to Eternal Take 2, there's not much I can say for that project. I think that that is, I don't want to say a bad album, but it's definitely not a good album. And I think that that opinion has been reflected amongst the community, whether it's Uzi fans or just fans as a whole. Everyone kind of agrees that Eternal Take 2
There's a thin line between being a visionary, being avant-garde, being a trendsetter, and making trend. It's a very thin line, you know. You just it gets to a point people are like, all right, you know, you might be trying to do something new, but this is trash. Objectively, this is trash, you know. There's a very thin line. I think people just need to get to know it better.
was a miss. And I think that not only did the poor reaction from fans kind of get to Uzi a bit, I also think that the low sales did as well, because this album only sold 60K first week, which for Uzi, the guy that Uzi is a very low mark. It's truly an amazing thing that Uzi's career has gone on for this long with this much great music, this much fan support, this many numbers and accomplishments. Like, it's an amazing thing. However, I don't think Uzi ever really thought of himself as like getting older and rapping. And I know that sounds weird because, like, you know, it was only 7 years ago, but still, when you look at the way that he used to talk.
Yeah, he should just know when to bow out gracefully, man. I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying that's where he is right now. I'm just saying objectively, he should look at his career, really think about for himself going forward, and if it makes any sense. And if it doesn't, I think just bow out gracefully. That's like, of course, you can drop music at any age. After all, Eminem is still doing that. But at some point, it just becomes a legacy kind of thing and not an active participation in the culture. You know, if Jay-Z drops an album today, he's not actively participating in the culture. It's more like a legacy drop, and he's dropping for a reason. Maybe he wants to really say something or whatever. You know, that's different. But actively being a participant in the present culture, you need to really look at where you are, your options, and what you really think. Be honest with yourself. And if it's time to bow out, you had your time. You know, 10 years is not a joke. There were people who lasted less than two. Remember Lil Pump, you know? So 10 years is definitely something to flex. It's definitely something to be proud of. And if this is where it is, if this is where you've gotten, 60K is still modest, but if this is where you think it's over, then yeah, gracefully, as opposed to stretching it out and everybody's just clowning you at that point.
Or look at some of his old tweets. It was like he didn't picture himself rapping at 30 plus. Maybe he thought he would be full time doing the rock star thing, or maybe just moving on to a completely different venture in life. But he would tweet stuff like, oh, you know, if you're older than 25, then you're old, just accept it, or something like that. Or he would tweet things like, if you're 30 and up, you're lame. And now he is that 30-year-old lame person, I guess, according to his own words.
I told the other people, it's a lot of people I never saw in person. I want to see how they look in person.
Like who?
I don't know. All the old people. I want to see how they look, see how old they look.
And it feels like in his career, he's kind of stuck. Like, he just doesn't really know what to do next. Now, of course, this is me looking from the outside in, but I think there's a lot of evidence to prove that based on him saying a whole bunch of different things. Old Uzi, new era. We're going back to 2016. We're doing Barter 1600. Like, there's a lot of different things that he's been saying. So it feels like he's not really quite sure where to go next. And I think that that is a bit weird for him, because Uzi never had to think about what he's going to do next, what his next sound was going to be. Uzi just did. He just did things.
So that's the problem with spontaneous people, and I know that because I'm spontaneous. But you need to know how to balance that. You need to have a certain plan, a certain sort of framework would allow you to be spontaneous within the framework that you have carefully built. But you can't just be fully spontaneous, because when shit gets real, when you are faced with a wall and you can't just blow through it, then what are you going to do? You need to have a structure in place, plan, and really know where you're going. And then you can just be spontaneous within that plan. And that's how you balance it out. But you can't just drop anything, do anything without any sort of plan or vision for the future and your career going forward. Because I think that's where all this has led him. He has just been way too carefree about his music and his brand and how he wants to, move forward. And now he's gotten to a place where the novelty of his music, the novelty of his difference has worn off because the culture has adapted and has moved on. And now it's like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I think that's where he is.
And people liked it regardless. So now when he's just doing things and people are kind of like, I don't know about that, Uzi. I think that that is kind of weird for him, and he's not really quite sure how to handle that. Ironically, whenever Uzi tries to like activate his fan base or rejuvenate them, get them excited again, he kind of leans into the old Uzi. He'll say stuff like the old Uzi's coming back, or he'll do a bunch of things that remind people of stuff from back in the day, or he'll even say he's going to continue a series that people loved in his discography, like Love Is Rage. I think that's exactly what happened with EA2. EA2 didn't really need to be a continuation of the original EA. It didn't really feel like it musically, at least to me. Now, of course, he tried to do some things with the aesthetics and, trying to tell the story of now he's in the alien world and he's breaking out or whatever. But that album just didn't really feel like it needed to be EA2, besides nostalgia baiting fans, at least in my opinion. And sometimes he'll even like have his hair dyed purple again to get those 2016 vibes back and have the fans going crazy. When the last two albums came out and they weren't super well received, Uzi tried to like distract us. I don't really know how to describe it, but he's like immediately like, forget about that, I'm dropping new music. And he did that both with the Pink Tape and EA2. And he typically does it with like old music. He's like, yeah guys, I'm gonna drop some Love Is Rage 3 for y'all. I'm gonna drop Love Is Rage 3, or I'm gonna
What about Love Is Rage 3?
Oh yeah, that's coming. Not too long. Probably like honestly, I know I usually be lying, but a couple months.
drop some stuff that sounds like old Uzi. Like it's kind of like his tactic of like getting what I guess is the heat off of him for dropping a project that a lot of people didn't like. When he dropped Pink Tape and, there was a lot of mixed reviews, a lot of people weren't liking it, some people were, he immediately came out and said, hey y'all, I'm about to drop Barter 1600, which was supposed to be his version of Young Thug's Barter 6, which is Young Thug's version of the Carter series from Lil Wayne, which, it's a really long thing that just, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, he was like, oh yeah, Barter 1600 on the way. And he was posting a bunch of snippets and doing like Young Thug cosplay. It was kind of strange. But then after that, he was like, hey y'all, if y'all get the Pink Tape to, I believe he said if y'all get the Pink Tape to #1, he would drop Love Is Rage 3, which, is a historic series in the Uzi catalog. That's probably his strongest series in his discography. So people were like, oh my God, Love Is Rage 3, the return to the old Uzi sound. We have to run, and it was like trying to almost distract us from the fact that the conversation surrounding the Pink Tape wasn't completely positive all the way around. And with EA2, he did a very similar thing. EA2 came out and, if you thought the conversation surrounding the Pink Tape was really negative, the conversation surrounding that album was very, very negative. And he immediately was like dropping a snippet on Instagram and people were like, oh my God, the old Uzi's back, the old Uzi's back. I can't believe it. Yeah, this is going to be way better than the album. People were even saying that EA2 was just his last album on the deal, and he was just trying to put an album out there for the label so he can get off his label and then actually drop his real music. Whenever fans have to make up their own theory like that, especially they go to that theory,
Whenever they start to make up shit like that without any sort of rumor here or there, just know that shit's getting sad, right? Shit's getting sad, like it's getting sad. You know you have a core fan base when they start making excuses for you. You know you have real ones when they start, defending you without any sort of evidence. That's crazy.
and they say that this album was just a throwaway to get off the label, that's how you know an album was kind of bad, bro. Like, I'm not, I love Uzi, and that's the only bad album in his discography, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love Uzi too. I love Uzi. I loved EXO Tour Life. I loved the one with Nicki. What's it called? I'm not the guy who listens to albums. For a lot of people, very few artists make me check out the entire album, but I definitely listen to all his hits. Now that I'm trying to remember the one with Nicki, I keep forgetting. They were in the forest. He was tied to a tree somewhere. You know, very dope songs. He has an amazing discography. But Age, man, father time. All things come and all things go. The way he entered is the same way he'd leave. It's you had your time in the spotlight, and I think it's time for you to move on. Me personally, if you come out with something dope again and rejuvenate everything, who am I to tell you what to do? Please go ahead to keep dominating. But from all intents and purposes and how it looks right now, yeah, it's donezo, boy. It's donezo.
But whenever the fans are going out of their way and saying, "Yo, he dropped this album just to get off his label, it's a throwaway. Don't even pay attention to that album, bro. It doesn't matter." That's how you kind of know with the project. It seems like whenever Uzi feels like his music isn't landing the way he wanted, he kind of resorts to nostalgia bait. Not only is his music not being glazed, but it feels like he lacks a bit of confidence in what he's doing.
Now,
For the Pink Tape, he
I
didn't
need
put out a
3 minutes.
single music video, and as soon
I
as he
need
got
like three
like
minutes,
2 weeks
so
away
I
from the album, he
need to do
completely
this.
stopped talking about it, stopped promoting it, stopped posting about it. It's like as soon as he drops and it's not loved, he tries to move on as quick as possible. Uzi is far from a lame artist, at least to me. He just now has to be a bit more intentional with what he does. Like he said when he was on the come up with these old guys who had been running around for a minute, they got to get with the program. Uzi is now the guy who might need to get with the program with some of these young guys. Uzi's at a very pivotal point in his career where a lot of people are doubting him, and the others are just hopeful that he can return to the musical dominance he once had. I think Uzi is an amazing artist, and if he locks in, he can awaken another prime. He'll pretty much always be relevant, but if he's still able to be a creative mind that people follow into his 30s, that would be super impressive. It is just a bit funny though that when Uzi finally starts to hit some rocks in the road in his career is when he gets to the age that he was ridiculing a lot of people for just being. Like you can't choose your age, but Uzi was really going.
I also think that if he lets himself mature, like I think he's still trying to live with, of course, in reference to the way he keeps going back to nostalgia. If he still relive those days of his youth, he needs to accept it's over. I think the problem here is he doesn't want to accept the fact that he's growing old and that the trends are changing and that the fans are over that. Either that or he can't make the kind of music he made anymore. Because if he could, I'm sure he would. I think he's realizing that he doesn't have that same source, and I think he needs to just accept that he's older, he's different, and start making music that he wants to make more suited for him. I think him trying to make music, trying to be somebody he no longer is the problem. There's a dissonance. There's the connection is gone. And so maybe he should give them older Uzi, and maybe that could be the spark to revive his career. Just be honest, man. Do music that's honest to you right now, and that might just be the barrier that's holding you back.
At people's necks for daring to be born before him. Now, his career could have fallen off in like a few years like Lil Pump or Smoke Perp, and we wouldn't even be having these discussions. So it's not like unheard of to finally have some issues in your career 10 years in, or it's not a bad thing, or it's not, something to try to point the finger at Uzi and be like, oh my God, you're a bum, you fell off. Like, it's none of that. It is just a bit funny, though, that, he was so heavy on his age and youth and all this stuff, and being young was so great, and now that he's no longer young, at least according to that version of Uzi, even though he's still a young person, like 30 is not old in any way, shape, or form. It's just funny that now his struggles come once he's past the age of 27, and it's just kind of a bit of a full circle moment of like, the power of the tongue, maybe. But I don't know. Regardless, if you made it this far, let me know what you think of this video down below. What do you think Uzi needs to do to really get back on the right track? And do you think he's done? Some people really think Uzi's done at this point. He's 30 years old. He has a lot of weird mannerisms and weird styles and sounds, and maybe that doesn't work for somebody who's.
I do personally feel like he's done, but only in this present moment. And if he keeps trying to do what he has been trying to do, I think for that era of him. But I do think that if he can shift gears, do something fresh, do something more authentic to his present reality and his present life and the place he is mentally, emotionally, and stop trying to do all that alien shit he was doing earlier, you know, then I think he might, you might see him do a comeback and reclaim that success. Maybe not to the same heights, but definitely he'd ascend further than he is presently. So yeah, that's it for this video. I gotta go very quickly. I just had to wrap this video up for you guys. I've been told to get my shit together and start moving. We're going out. So thank you guys for watching. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a share, drop a comment if you will. Smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Check out my reflective content channel. It's called 10T3N for more introspective videos like the reactions I'm giving you here. And I'll see you over there. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'm out. Peace.